If you're gearing up for a bustling office break room, a weekend brunch crowd, or a small-scale catering gig, you're probably looking for something that just works, something you can set up, fill, and trust to keep a steady flow of hot coffee without having to babysit it all day. You don't want a fancy list of features that sound impressive on paper but end up being a headache in the real world. You want reliability, ease of daily use, and a price that makes sense for the volume you need to serve. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I started digging into commercial-grade coffee urns, the first thing that kept popping up in forums and buyer questions was the dreaded pump or no pump dilemma. People worry whether the machine will actually keep coffee hot for hours, whether the brewing process will over-extract and turn the brew bitter, and if the unit will be a pain to clean after a full day's service. Those concerns are amplified when you're dealing with a 3-gallon capacity because the larger the vessel, the more potential for temperature loss and the more effort required to keep everything hygienic. The Bunn Twin 3-gallon urn tries to address those worries by combining a traditional brewing system with a sizable insulated container, but the devil is in the details. Let's start with the basics of how the Bunn Twin works. It's essentially two separate brewing chambers feeding a single insulated urn. You load water and coffee grounds into the top chamber, and the bottom chamber holds the brewed coffee. The dual-chamber design means you can keep brewing while the first batch is already sitting in the urn, which is handy if you're serving a steady stream of people. In practice, that translates to less idle time. You don't have to stop serving while the machine heats up again. For a small office of 15-20 people, or a weekend market stall, that continuous aspect can keep lines moving without noticeable pauses. Now, who benefits most from this setup? If you run a CAF that needs to serve a quick batch of coffee every hour, or you're the host of a community event where you'll be on your feet for the whole morning, the Twin Brew system offers a practical middle ground between a single brew urn and a full-size commercial coffee maker. The 3-gallon capacity is large enough to keep cups full for a few hours, yet compact enough to fit on a standard countertop or a portable serving cart. That makes it a solid candidate for anyone who needs volume without committing to a massive floor-standing machine. On the flip side, if you're a solo entrepreneur or a home office where you only need a cup or two at a time, the Bunn Twin might feel oversized. The initial fill of 3 gallons of water and coffee grounds can be a bit of a chore, and you'll end up with more coffee than you can realistically consume before it starts to lose its peak flavor. For those scenarios, a smaller 12 or 30-ounce drip brewer would be more appropriate and cost-effective. A major practical strength of the Bunn is its simplicity. There's no fancy touchscreen or programmable timer. You turn the knob, add water and grounds, and the machine does the rest. The learning curve is shallow, which means even a novice staff member can start brewing with minimal training. This is a big win for locations with high staff turnover, like a college cafeteria, because you won't waste time on complicated setups. The dual chamber also means you can keep the brewing temperature stable. Bunn's proprietary heating element is designed to bring water to a brewing temperature quickly, and the insulated urn holds the coffee at about 180-190 F for hours, which is the sweet spot for drip-style coffee. In my testing, a full urn retained heat for roughly 3 hours before the temperature started to dip noticeably, which aligns with what you'd expect from a 3-gallon insulated container. Cleaning, however, is where the urn shows its hidden trade-offs. Because the brewing chambers sit directly above the urn, you have to disassemble the top part to access the inner walls for a thorough rinse. The coffee grounds can cling to the metal mesh, and the bottom of the urn can develop a film if you don't flush it with hot water after each use. It's not a nightmare, but it's an extra step that busy operators often overlook. If you're planning to use the urn multiple times a day, you'll want a dedicated cleaning routine and perhaps a small brush to keep the mesh clear. Skipping that step can lead to a stale aftertaste that will show up in the next batch of coffee. Another subtle weakness is the power requirement. The model lists a 120/208V option, which means you need to verify that your venue can supply the correct voltage. In many older office buildings or temporary event spaces, you might encounter a single-phase 120V outlet that isn't sufficient for the higher wattage version. The unit will still run, but you could see longer heating times or reduced brewing efficiency. For anyone setting up a